Today, I'm going to be reading Chapter 20 of Ground Zero by Alan Gratz. This chapter is titled Gone. Rashmina ran to look over the edge of the mountain where Passoon had aimed his rifle, and she pulled it back in surprise. The American camp, the one Passoon had shot at years ago, was abandoned now. The Taliban had torn down the tin roofs and painted insults on the rock barriers, but nobody was there. The Americans had packed up and left. The ANA still had bases in province, but not the Americans. Not anymore. Ha, Rashmina said. Look, all that shooting, all that fighting, and for what? Neither side won anything, and neither side lost anything, except lives. We won, Passoon told her. We drove them out. Out of what? Why? Nobody lives here, Rashmina cried. We're in the middle of nowhere. There's no water, no food, nothing for animals to graze on. Nobody really wants this place. Not the Americans, and not the Taliban either. They just wanted to fight. It's like it's all some big game. Passoon aimed the rifle at the old camp and pulled the trigger. Bacow! Rashmina put her hands over her ears. Passoon, what are you? Passoon fired again. Bacow! What was he doing? There was nobody down there. Bacow! The old Soviet rifle echoed down through the valley. Suddenly, Rashmina understood. I'm going to call the Taliban, Passoon had said, which was silly because neither of them had a phone. But if Passoon couldn't call the Taliban on the phone, he could call them with a rifle. He'd make them come to see who was shooting. Rashmina grabbed the rifle and tried to pull it from Passoon's hands. Passoon, don't! Rashmina pleaded. You don't know what you're doing. I do too, Passoon said as they tussled. I'm doing what you and Baba should have done in the first place. I'm going to tell the Taliban there's an American soldier in our house. Passoon was too strong for her. He was going to give up the gun. Rashmina tucked her foot around his leg and tripped him, and they fell to the ground with a thud. The rifle slipped from Passoon's fingers, and they fought for it, kicking and shoving and wrestling each other, and not in a playful way they had that morning. This was desperate, vicious. Rashmina felt like she was fighting for her life. Passoon pushed her away with his foot and got enough separation for her to stand. He held the gun to one side, barrel pointed at the ground, and panted to catch his breath. His eyes were wide and wild, and his chest heaved. You're so stupid, Passoon, Rashmina told him. She pulled herself to her feet. You're like a worm who crawls into a snake's nest and says, Hey, what are we snakes going to do today? You're just like a little baby playing at being a grown-up. Passoon hit her hard on the side of her face with his open palm. The blow was so sudden, so brutal, it sent Rashmina to her hands and knees. Rocks cut into her palms, but she didn't move. Rashmina tasted blood where she'd been bitten by her own tongue, and her face burned from the sting of Passoon's hand. But what made her cry was the awful, shocking savagery of it. Rashmina and her twin brother had played rough since they were babies, pushing and poking and yanking at each other whenever they squabbled. But Passoon had never hit her, not like this, not with such venom. The worm was a snake after all. Rashmina dragged her sleeve across her eyes, but stayed on her hands and knees. Passoon, she begun, but her brother cut her off. I may be your twin brother, Rashmina, but this is still Afghanistan. I am still a man, and you are still a woman. And you can't speak to me like that. Rashmina kept her eyes on the ground. Passoon, you know what the Taliban does to anyone who helps the Americans. If you tell them we're hiding an American soldier in our house, we are hiding an American soldier in our house, they will kill us when they come for him. Everyone you love will die. Anna, Moore, Baba, Marzia, and Zahar. Me. Passoon's voice wavered as he answered. Baba made his decision. He's the one who sided with the infidels. They will kill everyone in the village just to teach us a lesson, Passoon. You'll see them do it. The Taliban will kill us all. You'll kill us all. Rashmina heard Passoon sniff like he was crying, but she didn't look up. Wouldn't So be it, Bassoon told her. Whatever happens to our family, it's Baba's fault. And yours, he added. Bassoon slid the bolt back and forth in the rifle and fired again. Pakow! Into the air. Rashmina shrank from the noise. He did it again. Pakow! Rashmina kept her head down and closed her eyes, waiting for another shot. Then nothing came. When nothing came, she looked up again. 3 Taliban fighters were coming along the path toward them. Bassoon, Rashmina pleaded. Bassoon, I still have your toy, she said, digging it out of her tunic to show him. Keep it, Bassoon told her. Toys are for babies. I'm a man now. Rashmina got to her feet. She saw now there was no stopping Bassoon from telling the Taliban about Taz. And as soon as he did, the Taliban would come to their village. They would kill Taz, and they would kill the rest of them for giving him refuge. The only thing she could do was get back to her village. She had to warn her family and everyone else. Rashmina turned and ran down the steep hillside, tumbling and falling and hitting every rock in the bush along the way. She slid to a stop in a narrow ravine, but could still see the Taliban up above. They were almost to her brother. Rashmina wrapped her scarf around her head and stumbled away, sobbing. All she wanted to do was sit down and cry, but she had to hurry. She hurt all over from her rough descent, and her face was still burned where Bassoon had struck her, but it was the loss of her brother that hurt worse than anything. Everything they had now, everything they had shared as twins, as close as 2 people could perhaps ever be in this world, was gone forever. Rashmina glanced over her shoulder one last time. Bassoon was talking animatedly with the Taliban and pointing back in the direction of their village. Rashmina ran faster. That's all for today. Thank you for listening.